Sadashiva-samarambham Shankaracharya-madhyamam Asmadacharya-paryantam Vande Guru-paramparam. Om Param Varishtam Brahmishtam Paramananda-rupinam Paramarthananda-yatim Sadgurum Pranatosmyaham. So, in the last class, we actually completed the verse on human janma. Labdva katanchit narajanma durlabham tatrapi pumstvam shutipara darshanam yastvastma muktye na yateta mudadhihi sahyat mahaswam vinihantya sadgrahat. So, after talking about the glory of the human janma, Shankaracharya now comes to the topic of moksha as the only means of liberation. So, in the following 3 verses, Shankaracharya covers moksha, right, is only possible through one method. And generally, if you see, there are 2 types of goals. So, in one type, you can attain the goal through different methods, right? I'll explain this quickly. So, one of the goals you can attain through different methods, many paths, many possibilities, like reaching a destination through many routes. It is possible, right? But there are some goals, right? Or one goal, which is only possible through one route, right? So, eka sadhana sadhyam and aneka sadhana sadhyam. So, a person can attain heaven through varieties of methods. So, a person can acquire punyam by doing puja, by doing service, any of the Panchamahayajnas, pilgrimage, right? Any of them. So, there are multiple methods by which you can do good things, get punya and reach heaven. So, this is called aneka sadhana sadhyam. But what about moksha? A very important message Acharya gives. Moksha doesn't have many roads. There is only one road, and that is spiritual knowledge, and that is alone the method. So it is an eka sadhana sadhyam, and the reason Shankaracharya will actually explain himself later, right? We will just note here, right? So we are talking of moksha, as I said in the last class. It is basically freedom from emotional problems, etc. We will see the liberation, right? Because all human problems are experienced at emotional level as sorrow, anger, guilt, depression, right? The problems of samsara are basically experienced at the emotional level. But the diagnosis of the scripture is the fundamental problem that is causing these emotional disturbances is intellectual. And the root cause is intellectual. Why? Because the intellectual problem is self-ignorance. And the solution for that is removal of self-ignorance and self-misconception. So, ignorance can only go through knowledge, just as darkness can go only through light. So, what does it mean? Self-ignorance can go only through self-knowledge. Shankaracharya therefore says, through self-knowledge alone, one can get liberation. Jnanad eva tu kaivalyam. Right? Kaivalyam here is moksha, liberation. So, heaven can be attained by several types of noble actions or noble upasanas, whereas for moksha, there is only one method. That Shankaracharya wants to convey a very, very important message. And the destination here is self-knowledge. And since the problem is self-misconception, born out of self-ignorance, they both will go away only by self-knowledge. Of course, For preparing the mind to receive this great knowledge, various spiritual disciplines are there. They are all important and they can all at best prepare the mind for it. But ultimately, without self-knowledge, moksha is not possible. And that is the message Acharya wants to give here. Therefore, he says, when we are engaged in different types of sadhanas, some of them direct, some of them indirect, one should remember the ultimate aim. It is not the quantity of time we spent in the sadhana or the rigor of the sadhana, right? None of these, right? Basically, whether the ultimate result is obtained or not is only when it leads to self-knowledge. If it doesn't lead to self-knowledge, you can do millions of sadhanas, spend millions of years, but it is a waste of time only. Therefore, do sadhanas all right to get your mind prepared, but a structured and systematic study, right, to attain the self-knowledge is the only way to liberation, right? That is what he says here. So, Swarna Bhagini, please chant after me. Patantu shastrani yajantu devan.
Pathantu shastrani yajantu devan.
Kurvantu karmani bhajantu devataha.
Kurvantu karmani bhajantu devataha.
Atmaikya bodhena vina vimuktihi.
Atmaikya bodhena vina vimuktihi.
Na siddhyati brahma shatantarepi.
Na siddhyati brahma shatantarepi.
So, patantu shastrani. A spiritual seeker, right, may study different types of shastrams for many years. What are the shastrams? We saw in Introduction to Vedanta. We also saw in Tattva Bodha, maybe in the introduction. Various shastras can be Vyakarana Shastra, can be Nyaya Shastra, can be Mimamsa Shastra, can be Veda Purva Bhaga, any of them, right? Yajantu Devan. Another person may do varieties of yajnas, worshipping different types of deities. Devan Yajantu, you may worship, right? And through various Vedic rituals. Similarly, Kurvantu Karmani. There may be some others who will do various types of karma other than yajna and yaga. So they may do other karma. They can even be involved in mundane worldly activities. So they may do Vaidika karma, they can do Laukika karma, they may do Shrauta karma, which is based on Shrutis, very rare. They may do Smarta karma or Bhajantu Devataha. Some other people may practice varieties of Upasana also, right? Bhajantu here means Upasanam Kurvantu. So the word Upasana means meditation. So Manasam karma or mental activity. Many people do all of this, right? But what is important is they should find out whether they are going in the direction of the self-knowledge. Am I getting clear self-knowledge? This must be the question throughout any of these sadhanas, right? Very, very important. So here Shankaracharya says, if self-knowledge doesn't take place, then the sadhana has not fructified. So we have to continue the sadhana. That is the idea, right? So Atma Aikya Bodhena Vina. If the sadhanas do not culminate in Atma Aikya Bodha, they are not the means to moksha. Bodha means knowledge or understanding. Atma means the self. And Aikya means the non-duality, ekatvam, advitiyatvam. So Atma Aikyam means the non-duality of Atma being one with that. The ultimate knowledge is there is only one and only one absolute reality, which is Atma. Atma is the absolute reality, which means everything else in this creation, entire creation, is only an appearance of that one Atma. There is no plurality at all. Whether it is space, air, fire, mountain, rivers, our body, mind, everything, all of them are manifestations of that one absolute reality called Atma. So that Atma is my real nature. That means, in fact, I am that absolute reality. Aham Brahmasmi. And I alone appear in the form of this pluralistic universe. So this is the message of the Upanishad that I should understand and assimilate. So, and I should be convinced about it, right? I shouldn't be thinking of myself as an insignificant individual in this universe who's having so many problems on the family front, on the career front, etc. Right? So I should understand I am the only significant reality, and I, the reality alone, appear as all these things in the universe. So this truth I must assimilate. It's a mind-boggling truth. Obviously, first time you're not going to relate to it at all. So that is called Atma Aikya Bodha. Further, Atma Aikya Bodhena Vina Vimuktihi na Siddhyati. So as long as this knowledge has not taken place in me, liberation is never possible at all. Even if one practices all the sadhanas for many, many, many years, liberation won't come as long as this knowledge has not taken place. So on the other hand, if a person gets this knowledge within a short period, then that person will get liberated. Thus, the duration of the sadhana is not important, but gaining the knowledge is important, right? Therefore, he says, Brahma Shatantare api. No, Brahma here means Brahmaji, the creator. In the scriptures, Brahma is described in two ways, right? The first one, which you may be more familiar with, according to one version, Brahma is God himself looked upon as the creator of the universe. So, one God himself is as a creator is called Brahma, as the sustainer is called Vishnu, and as the resolver, he is himself called Shiva. So, they are all different versions of the same God. Brahma is looked at as a God. This is one version. From another angle, which many of you may not be familiar with, is Brahma is looked upon as another Jiva only, right? This version is also there in the Shastra. He's an exalted Jiva. A Jiva, when he performs exalted karma intensely, and when his punyam reaches a peak, right? The peak means peak. If there's a word, peakest of the peak, because that's nobody can go beyond that, right? Then he can take the post of Brahma. And according to this version, Brahmaji is the name of a post, like Prime Minister, President, etc. Even Indra is supposed to be a post. Therefore, any Jiva, interestingly, because Indra is also supposed to be a post, and although he's a Devata, he is constantly worried about his position. So if you see somewhere in the Puranas, it is depicted as some place, some, big yaga is going on. The Devatas come there, some of them to actually obstruct. Especially Indra, you will see positioned like that in several Puranas, right? So anyway, coming back to this, Brahmaji is also a post. Therefore, any Jiva, if he gains sufficient punyam, can become Brahma. So moreover, the scripture talks about the duration of Brahmaji's life. And that is supposed to be the highest possible duration of life for a Jiva. So that duration, according to scriptures, is roughly 3 crore human years. That means 3 followed by 14 zeros. That is the lifespan of Brahma. And when that duration is completed, that Brahma will have to vacate and he will get liberation. Brahma will get liberation and the next Brahma will take over. Okay. So all this is just an aside note, but the important point here to be noted is, here Shankaracharya says, Brahma Shata Antare Api. So a person may do sadhanas for 100 times the duration of Brahmaji's lifespan. That is 3 crore years multiplied by 100. 300 crore years, or 3 into 16, 3 followed by 16 zeros. So a person may study Vedanta, he may do rituals, he may do meditation. Still, moksha will not come if the sadhana doesn't culminate in the understanding that I am the only significant entity in the creation who lends existence to everything else in the creation. So, Brahma Shata Antare api vimukti na siddhyati. So, the idea that is conveyed is a long duration of sadhana doesn't automatically guarantee vimukti, right? So, then a person may ask, what is bhakti? What about bhakti, right? If that bhakti is resulting in the same, right, Brahma Jnanam, right, and culminates in the same knowledge, then yes, we accept. But if bhakti is anything else, it can only prepare the mind, it can never give liberation. So this is a very important message of Vedanta. Therefore, do any type of sadhana to prepare the mind, but let the ultimate aim be self-knowledge. Through self-knowledge alone, one can get liberation. Jnanadeva tu kaivalyam, that is the message. So, patantu shastrani yajantu devan kurvantu karmani bhajantu devataha atmaikya bodhena vina vimuktihi na siddhyati brahma shatantarepi. So, next verse. Bhagini, you can repeat after me. Chittasya shuddhaye karma
चित्तस्य शुद्धये कर्म
न तु वस्तूपलब्धये
न तु वस्तूपलब्धये
वस्तुसिद्धिर्विचारेण
वस्तुसिद्धिर्विचारेण
न किञ्चित् कर्म कोटिभिः.
न किञ्चित् कर्म कोटिभिः.
So a famous, very often quoted verse, here the Acharya gives an important note. Spiritual sadhana consists of 2 stages. So the first stage is preparing the mind. The second stage is receiving the knowledge. So without preparing the mind, knowledge cannot be received. So if the mind is prepared and the knowledge is still not received, right, then what happens, right? So there is a prepared mind, but liberation is not there, right? So basically what can happen in this case? There are 2 possibilities, right? One is mind is not prepared. You are having exposure to knowledge. That also doesn't work. The other case is mind is prepared, but there's no exposure to knowledge. So both preparation and acquisition of knowledge must be given equal importance, right? So initially preparation, later acquisition of knowledge. So all the preparatory disciplines put together are called Karma Yoga. Even Upasana Yoga is a form of Karma Yoga only. Karma Yoga is a generic name for all the preparatory sadhanas, and a person has to go through them and get equipped to receive the knowledge. And then he has to gain the knowledge to get liberation, right? So here Acharya says, Chittasya Shuddhaye Karma. Karma Yoga consists of all the sadhanas like doing puja, doing meditation, doing japa, doing rituals, right? So varieties of yogic practices, all of them are karma or karma yoga. It is meant for chitta shuddhi, mental purification. So without chitta shuddhi, it is not possible to gain jnanam at all. But we should carefully note that karma yoga can only give chitta shuddhi. It cannot give knowledge. So chitta means mind, shuddhi means purification. So it can purify the mind, but it can never give self-knowledge. So natu vastu palabde. So vastu in the Vedantic context means reality, which is basically another name for Atma or Brahma Jnanam, right? So meaning reality. Upalabdhihi means knowledge, right? So attainment, or it means attaining of this knowledge, right? So vastu upalabdhaye means atma jnanam na bhavati. Na labdhaye means na bhavati. Any amount of karma yoga will not lead to atma jnanam. So naturally the question will be, then atma jnanam comes by what method? So he says vastu siddhihi vicharena, right? So very important is Vastu Siddhihi Vicharena. So Atma is the one which can be known only through Vedantic scriptures or Upanishadic scriptures. That is why in the starting shloka, the first one, what did we see? Sarva Vedanta Siddhanta Gocharam. Tam go agocharam. It cannot be known through any other method. Just like to look at my face, I have to make use of a mirror. There's no other way. You have to make use of your mirror. Similarly, for knowing myself, I have to use the mirror called Upanishadic scriptures, right? Shastra Darpanam, it is referred to as. So, and the scriptures present self-knowledge through a consistent and systematic teaching method. A teaching called sampradaya. And how do you employ the teaching method given by the scriptures? By making self-inquiry using the teaching, right? So self-inquiry is to be done with the help of scriptural teaching. That means by inquiring the scriptural teaching, I have to understand the self. The more I inquire into the scriptural teaching, the more I keep understanding about myself clearly. It is like when I look at the mirror, superficially seeing, it may appear I am looking into the mirror, but really speaking, looking into the mirror is looking into one's own face, into my own face, right? So Shastra Darpana, the scriptural mirror, is used to look into its teaching. And the more I study the scriptures consistently and systematically, the more I understand myself, right? So self-inquiry is scriptural inquiry, and scriptural inquiry is self-inquiry. Both are synonymous. Therefore, Vastu Siddhihi means the attainment of reality. In this context, the knowledge of reality, Vicharena eva bhavati, is possible only through self-inquiry, which is accomplished through the Vedantic inquiry. So, Vastu Siddhihi Vicharena na kinchit karma kotibhihi. So, if you say, I will not do inquiry, okay, instead I will only do puja, right? Or I will go for pilgrimages, I will increase my meditation, right? All of them you can practice up to a certain level. Thereafter, those karma yoga sadhanas should be gradually replaced by jnana yoga sadhana. Thus, both of them are important. Says Acharya, practice karma yoga, prepare the mind, come to jnana yoga, make scriptural inquiry, know yourself, and become free. So this is the important message. Karma kotibihi means crores of karma, crores of varieties of sadhana, na vastu siddhihi, will not lead to the knowledge of the self or attainment of liberation. Right? Chittasya shuddhaye karma natu vastu upalabdhaye vastu siddhir vicharena na kinchit karma kotibihi. Ato vichara kartavyah
अतो विचारः कर्तव्यः
जिज्ञासोरात्मवस्तुनः
जिज्ञासोरात्मवस्तुनः
समासाद्यदया सिन्धुम्
समासाद्य दया सिन्धुम्
गुरुं ब्रह्मविदुत्तमम्.
गुरुं ब्रह्मविदुत्तमम्.
So until now, Acharya has said moksha is possible only through jnanam, and jnanam is possible only through self-inquiry. Self-inquiry is only in the form of scriptural inquiry. All the three statements are very, very important, right? Now he adds one more very, very important note. Nobody should conduct scriptural inquiry by himself or herself independently, because it will lead to misunderstanding of the scriptures. Since the absolute reality is extremely subtle, it is not available for any other instrument of knowledge, not perceptible through sense organs or even powerful instruments. It is extremely subtle, ati sukshma. Therefore, the scriptures have to make use of ingenious methods called prakriyas. Okay. So prakriyas are a methodology of communication. So several prakriyas are used and we should know how to use them. Right? Exactly like if you take any gadget, you should know how to use the gadget properly, right? So similarly, scriptures should be employed in a very, very right, appropriate method. Scriptures themselves suggest that you should study them from a guru only. No choice is given by the scriptures, right? So, you see this here, there is a verse from mantra from Chandogya Upanishad 493. Shrutam hyevame bhagavad drishebhya acharya dhaiva vidya vidita sadishtam prapatiti. Right? Just that portion that's underlined. So it says very clearly, it's a statement occurring in the Veda itself. And when the scriptures are studied from a guru, then alone it will be effective. it will be converted into liberating knowledge. Otherwise, it will end up only as a scholarly activity. Therefore, all the Upanishads uniformly declare that Guru is compulsory, right? And even if there are some special spiritual geniuses who have gained self-knowledge without a Guru, tradition says it is not that they did not have a Guru. They are born a spiritual genius because of Purva Janma Sadhana in which they had a Guru. For some reason, they could not completely attain the knowledge. Therefore, even in their case, there was a Guru in the previous Janma. Therefore, the Guru is compulsory, and this is the declaration of all our scriptures. Shankaracharya mentions that here, ataha vicharaha kartavyaha jignasoho atma vastunaha. Ataha, therefore, self-inquiry should be done in the form of scriptural inquiry. Vicharaha means atma vicharaha, meaning inquiry, not any other meaning. It is inquiry, vicharaha. So, vicharaha into what? Absolute reality, paramarthika satya atma. So, atma vastunaha, right? So, jignasoho. So, for a person who is desirous of the knowledge of Atma, Atma Vastu, a seeker of the knowledge of Atma, Atma Vastunaha Vicharaha Kartavyaha. So, for a seeker who is desirous of this knowledge, self-inquiry through scriptural study must be done. So, Shankaracharya is now worried, right? Because what can happen? Because the statement is there, we could take up the first. But somebody who is very enthusiastic can go to the list of Upanishads. There's in fact a mantra which just reels out the list of the Dasha Upanishads and then say, okay, let me pick up Isha, Kena, Kata in that order. I'll keep a big Sanskrit dictionary, right? Worst can be, you can even use Monier-Williams, which will translate verbatim into English. And then we try, translate and understand. So the first Upanishad, very interesting here, the first Upanishad enumerated in the Dasha Upanishad series is Ishavasya Upanishad. It starts with the following Shantipata. Okay, I'm not chanting because it will signify the end of our class. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate. Right? So that is the Shantipata which is there for Ishavasya Upanishad. Assume that somebody gets into that first, right? And the word Purnam, right, means whole, complete, full, etc. So if we translate the Shantipata, it will read something like this. This is whole, that is whole, this whole has come from that whole, and when you remove whole from whole, whole alone remains. This is the literal translation. So what do we understand from this translation? I understand Pujya Swamiji, that is our Swamiji's Guru, Dayananda Saraswati Swamiji used to say, in your head also only whole remains, nothing else. H-O-L-E, right? So even to understand this Purnamada Shantipata, you have to know all the Upanishads. But with the help of a literal translation, if you try to understand, it will not work, right? So this is actually the meaning. I'm not going to explain this because I did try to explain this in the Introduction to Vedanta ICAM topic, because some people wanted to know the meaning of the Shantipata. So if you feel like attempting to understand, you can go and listen to this. But this meaning is definitely better, makes sense, but I'm not sure whether everybody can get it in the first go. It requires a lot of Shravanam, understanding of Gita and Upanishads to get to this stage and understand this, right? So, therefore, Shankaracharya says, Gurum Samasadhya. May you not have intellectual arrogance saying, I will not go to somebody else. I will not bow down to somebody else. I will discover myself. Yeah, maybe you can try, but you will just keep on trying, right? You have to be humble. In fact, humility is the first and foremost quality required for a sadhaka. In the Bhagavad Gita, in the 13th chapter, Lord Krishna talks about amanitvam, humility being the first, very first value, right? Therefore, may you be humble, accept the necessity of a guru, right? And more importantly, it's very, very important that when we also talk to the Guru, if you have taken that person as a Guru, physically also, while speaking also, give that respect as a Guru, right? And Swamiji says, you may be a supreme, superior person in the topmost position. Don't call the Guru and say, can you come home now? It doesn't work that way. This is scriptural studies and this requires reverence, right? And even great emperors like Janaka and all, the way they approach Yajnavalkya, we see this in the Upanishads. It makes you think, right, that this is most important, humility or reverence, right? So, Samasadhya, you go to his place and do namaskara. Tad vijnanartam sa gurumeva abhigachet, right? Samit panish shrotriya brahmanishtam. So basically, may you do namaskara to the teacher, serve the teacher for some time, please the teacher. Shankaracharya himself will tell this later. When the teacher is pleased, then request him to teach, and then he will give you wisdom. So gurum samasadhya, having approached a guru, what type of guru? Daya Sindhum Gurum Brahmavit Uttamam. So Brahmavit means one who is the knower of Brahman, who is the knower of Atma, right? Brahmaveti iti Brahmavit. He knows, he is knower of Brahma. Uttamam means best, right? Uttamaha Brahmavit ityartaha. So what do you mean by the best knower of self? It means one who has internalized the fact that Brahman is himself. So he is a jnani, basically. He doesn't look upon himself as an individual in the creation. He looks upon the entire creation as something which is existing in himself. For him, teaching of Brahman is teaching about himself. It is his autobiography that he is presenting. Such a person who is Brahmanishtaha, who is a Shrotriyaha, so to such a Guru, that is, he has also come through the Guru Parampara, right? And he is a Brahmanishtaha. And Daya Sindhu, one who has got compassion to give you self-knowledge, because a jnani doesn't require anything in life. You cannot pay him money. You cannot say, I'll give you 1 crore, you teach me this, you come here, there and all. He doesn't need that, right? So you cannot use wealth to purchase self-knowledge. The only price is Shraddha and Bhakti. Once you express your Shraddha and Bhakti, he will feel the compassion to you as a spiritual seeker. He'll feel that. And that compassionate Guru, Dhaya Sindhuhu, will teach you. Sindhuhu means ocean of compassion, right? So, what are the 4 points that he has made so far, Acharya? Liberation is possible only through self-knowledge, the first one. Self-knowledge is possible only through self-inquiry. Then self-inquiry is possible only by scriptural study or scriptural inquiry. Scriptural inquiry is possible only through the teaching of a qualified guru. Thus, a mumukshu should become a jignasuhu should become a shushrushu. So, mumukshu to jignasuhu to shushrushu, right? Is the basically mumukshuhu is a seeker of moksha, jignasuhu is a seeker of knowledge, shushrushu is the one who seeks to listen to a guru's teaching, right? So, may you become interested in listening to a consistent and systematic teaching program of a compassionate guru. So, with this, the jnana sadhana is, that topic is over. So, he's going to now proceed into, now he's talked about the guru, he has to proceed to talk about the student, right? So, he has given the message now, jnana deva kaivalyam, and he's also covered a little bit about the guru. So, this is basically the foundation of Vedanta. And then, of course, we will be going in and starting to do a variety of sadhanas, etc. Right? We're going to discuss all that. Right? So, ato vichara kartavyah jignasoratma vastunah samasadhya daya sindhum gurum brahma viduttamam. So, now comes the next important topic. All the fundamentals have actually been covered here. It's very, very, very all-encompassing. If you remember, when I talked about the Prakarana Grantha, I said it covers all the topics, right, in very nice detail. So next, we are going to enter into a topic, Adhikaritvam, right? That's the next topic, qualifications of a student, basically. What are they? We are going to see. adhikarinama shaste
अधिकारिणमाशास्ते
phalasiddhirvisheshatah
फलसिद्धिर्विशेषतः
upayadeshakaladhyaah
उपायादेशकालाद्याः
santyasmin sahakarinah.
सन्त्यस्मिन् सहकारिणः.
Here, Acharya says, if the student has to benefit from the teachings of the Guru, not only a well-qualified Guru is required, the student must have a prepared mind or a prepared intellect, basically, because if the receiver's mind is not prepared, even the best Guru or Bhagavan himself will not be able to make the student receive knowledge. It's exactly like trying to sow the best seed in an unprepared soil. Right? The seed will not be able to sprout and grow into a tree, right, or into a plant, right? So, in fact, Lord Krishna says this, Aneka janma samsiddhaha tato yati param gatim. Lot of preparatory ground, maybe over many janmas, right? And we have to cover before commencing the study. So, how does one prepare the mind? So, Acharya says you should prepare the mind in such a way that the mind should have fourfold qualifications to receive this knowledge, right? So, the mind has to be prepared to receive this unique knowledge in order to bear the fruit of moksha. So, Acharya wants to elaborately talk about the qualification and requirements of the student, right? So, even if the student takes a long time to acquire these, it is worth the time and effort because Jnana Yoga will work instantaneously. Otherwise, any amount of Jnana Yoga will not work, right? So, the preparation is very, very important. Therefore, he says, Phala Siddhihi, the accomplishment of the result of the inquiry. And phalam here means Jnana Yogasya phalam or Atma Vicharasya phalam, the result of Jnana Yoga or self-inquiry, right? Which is Jnanam and Moksha. So the accomplishment of the fruit of the inquiry, Ashaste, depends upon, is conditioned by Adhikarinam, a well-prepared student. The word Adhikari means one who is fit, qualified or prepared. So a legitimate student, Visheshataha, primarily, right, especially, in short, Phalasiddhihi Visheshataha Adhikarinam Ashaste, means the accomplishment of the fruit of the inquiry is primarily dependent upon the student. And the primary condition for successful inquiry is mental preparation. There are some other factors which are contributory causes. Those contributory causes are also important, but they are all only supportive or secondary causes. Upaya, the other auxiliary causes are supportive causes like Desha Kala Deha. Desha means an ideal place. Like when we conduct a Vedanta class, we cannot sit in the middle of a bus stand or something, right, where there's so much of noise and teach. It doesn't work. We need a somewhat ideal atmosphere. So an appropriate atmosphere is required. And a Grihastha can sit in his house and also gain knowledge. It's not that he needs to only go to an ashrama, right? Of course, an ashrama, for a sannyasi in an ashrama, he has advantage because he has nothing else to worry about. He can study and focus fully on this knowledge, right? So external conditions are only secondary. Mental preparation is the primary requirement. So a prepared grihastha may be able to study Vedanta even in the city, right? Whereas an unprepared student in the sannyas, in the ashrama, could be a sannyasi. He might have become a sannyasi to study Vedanta in an ashrama under even Acharya himself. But if his mental preparation is not there, which is compulsory, it may not fructify. So Desha and Kala are only secondary factors, right? They are useful, contributory, right? So Sahakarinaha means supportive causes. So our tradition talks about 4 ashramas: Brahmacharya ashrama, Grihastha ashrama, Vanaprastha ashrama and Sannyasa ashrama. Generally, for the Vedic study, 2 ashramas are considered ideal. Brahmacharya ashrama, where they study the Veda Purva Bhaga, and Sannyasa ashrama, where they study the Veda Anta Bhaga. So these 2 ashramas are considered ideal for Vedic study. But what we say is, they are no doubt ideal, but they are not compulsory. A grihastha can still manage to study and gain knowledge after getting the requisite qualification. So remaining a grihastha, liberation is possible. Lord Krishna says so in the Bhagavad Gita, right? And King Janaka, I always like this example. What a great emperor he must have been with all his problems on the personal front, right? And of course, his own place, the region to govern, etc. Lord Krishna talks about him in the Gita. Karmanaivahi samsiddhim astita janakadayah loka sangrahamevapi sampashyan kartumarhasi. So Janaka is being cited there in chapter 3 of the Gita. Therefore, desha, kala, adayaha, etc. includes the ashramas, one's age, stage in life, gender. Irrespective of whether one is male or female, one can get knowledge and liberation, provided he or she prepares the mind and gains the requisite knowledge and the requisite qualifications for getting the knowledge. So, desha, kala, adayaha, upaya, asmin, right? Asmin vishaye, in this context, in this spiritual context, right? So, sahakarinaha. So, there are primary qualifications, visheshataha, and sahakarinaha means the secondary causes, right? So, both are required, but primary cause is very, very important. So, these are the parameters. The primary causes need to be taken care of, which is the qualifications. And to attain the qualifications, what are all required? We are going to see all that. What are the requisite qualifications? We are going to see. Adhikarinamaashaste phalasiddhirvisheshatah upaya desha kaladhyaha santyasmin sahakarinah sadhanan yatra chatvari
साधनान्यत्र चत्वारि
kathitani manishibhihi
कथितानि मनीषिभिः
eshu satsveva sannishta
येषु सत्स्वेव सन्निष्ठा
yadbhavena siddhyati.
यदभावेन सिद्ध्यति.
So hereafter we must remember that self-inquiry and scriptural study are basically the same, right? They are synonymous. So there is no self-inquiry without scriptural inquiry. So here atra means with regard to self-inquiry or atma vichara vishaye, we can take it as atra adhikaritva vishaye, with regard to the either atma vichara vishaye or the preparedness of a student in the context of self-inquiry. Atra chatvari sadhanani kathitani. Chatvari means 4 sadhanas have been mentioned, 4 preparatory disciplines. So 4 disciplines are what? They have been mentioned. And Shankaracharya says, I am not mentioning, they have been mentioned by Manishibhihi, by rishis who have given our Vedanta Shastram. So in the Vedic scriptures, 4 qualifications are mentioned for a person desirous of scriptural inquiry. All these 4 qualifications should be there in reasonable amount. Very important point, especially with respect to grihasthas, because I feel we can never get to 100% to start the scriptural studies, right? And most often we end up being diffident, saying maybe we don't have shama in 50%, dhamma 25%, and then titiksha. We start wondering like that, right? So we don't need to feel diffident at all. If we have reasonable amount, right, it is fine. We can embark on the classes. So one should have reasonable health to attend the classes. So it doesn't mean that you have to have, perfect blood pressure, a perfect weight, etc. So similar to physical health is this health for the Vedantic studies, which is sadhana chatushtaya sampatti, the 4-fold qualifications, right? And if they are not there at all, we can never go to the class. The fact that we are going to the class or attending or even thinking of attending means we have that in reasonable quantity, right? And the interesting thing is, even the very study of Vedanta itself will improve the qualifications. It will happen over the years. Therefore, when the qualifications are there at an optimum level, Eshu satsveva sannishta bhavati. Only the ones abiding in that succeed. Sannishta means abidance in the jnanam and the atma. So sannishta, again very interesting, can be taken in two ways, right? It can be taken as sati nishta, which is good and firm abidance, right? Assimilation of the teachings. Or you can take it as sati brahmani nishta. That means what? Firm abidance in Brahman. It is possible only if sadhana chatushtaya sampatti is there. Yadabhave na siddhyati. So the argument is called basically anvaya vyatireka, which means what? The first one, eshu satsveva sannishta. So if the fourfold qualifications are present, it can happen. And then the vyatireka is yadabhave na siddhyati. So if these fourfold qualifications are absent or deficient, then there is a problem in the assimilation of the teaching. So what happens is, typically many of us will feel that the Vedanta classes are beautiful, but once you get out of the class, you won't be able to recollect, you will not be able to restate, you will not be able to summarize. These things happen, but with years even this improves, right? So the diagnosis of this problem is deficiency of sadhana chatushtayam, right? Mostly between shamaha and damaha, especially shamaha, this mental calmness is very much required to absorb the teaching, to shut out all other problems and spend that 1 hour focused is a difficult task, right? So now we are going to get into the detailed discussions of the fourfold qualifications, right? Sadhanan yatra chatvari khatithani manishibihi eshu satsveva sannishta yadabhavena siddhyati. Adau nitya nitya vastu vivekah pariganyate.
आदौ नित्यानित्यवस्तु विवेकः परिगण्यते
Ihamutra phala bhoga viragastadhanantaram.
इहामुत्रफलभोगविरागस्तदनन्तरम्
Shamadi shatka sampattihi mumukshuttvamiti sputam.
शमादिषट्कसम्पत्तिः मुमुक्षुत्वमिति स्फुटम्.
So I have marked these D's in bright yellow to just remind you that we have seen these as 4 D's at the beginning of Introduction to Vedanta as well as Tattva Bodha. We have seen this, right? So in this word, Acharya is enumerating these fourfold qualifications. Thereafter, he is going to deal with each one of them, right? So we are only going to see the brief introduction to this. Vivekaha. Adau, the first and foremost qualification is Vivekaha pariganyate. Vivekaha means discriminative knowledge, differentiating knowledge, knowing the difference between the two important things into which the entire universe is classified. Nitya, Anitya Vastu, right? Nitya Vastu is the eternal entity, Brahman or Atma, the absolute reality, right? And the Anitya Vastu is everything other than the eternal, right? Which means ephemeral, the impermanent. So Nitya, Nitya Vastu Vivekaha means discrimination between the eternal and ephemeral, right? That's the first one. That discrimination should be known. Why is this required? Because even to fix our goals in life or priorities in life, right? Forget the Laukika karma. Laukika, we definitely need this. We need to know what is our priority, right? So for that, this discrimination is needed. What is permanent? What is impermanent? So that is Vivekaha, right? That's the first qualification. Second one is Vairagyam. So, Ihamutra Phalabhoga Viragaha Tad Anantaram. Anantaram, after this, right? The second most important qualification required is dispassion or detachment, right? Towards what? Nitya and Anitya Vastu. So, what attitude should I have towards the Nitya Vastu and what attitude should I have towards the Anitya Vastu? This I should clearly understand and gradually build upon that. So, first Acharya talks about Anitya Vastu, Viragaha, detachment or dispassion with regard to every ephemeral thing and being. So for all these anitya vastus, he gives a new name here, Iha Amutra Phalam. So in the scriptures, the entire creation is said to have come into existence only for the sake of Jiva, the individual living being, not for the sake of Bhagavan, right? So according to Vedanta, the world has come into existence only because the Jiva needs the world for going through different experiences in life. Without the world, the experiences of pleasure and pain is not possible, and the Jiva will not be able to exhaust the karma, the prarabdha karma, right? So the world is determined by the samashti, the total of all jivas, the fructifying karma, right? So, and this world is needed to produce the karma phalam. So in this life, we exhaust a part of that karma, and that is through pleasurable and painful experiences. So the world around us, the family, the possessions, all of this, right? Our body, mind can only give us what? They are meant for giving sukham and dukkham. Therefore, the world is defined as karma phalam, right? So it is not the karma phalam of the world. It is the karma phalam of the jiva. So our surroundings, world situations are a result of our own karma phalam only. So that is why the physical world remaining the same, the individual jiva undergoes different experiences. And the karma phalam is divided into two types. The karma phalam obtained or fructifying in the current life, and the innumerable other karma phalams which are waiting to fructify in the future lives, right? So, Iha Amutra Phalam indicates the karma phalam, Iha belonging to the current janma and Amutra belonging to the future janma, right? So, therefore, with regard to Phalabhoga, all the experiences given by the ephemeral universe, one should develop more and more detachment. This is especially applicable to pleasurable experiences because pain anyway nobody wants. But even with pleasurable experiences, developing that healthy dispassion is important. So Vedanta says you have to develop detachment if you happen to be a seeker of moksha. If you say I am not interested in moksha, we have nothing to tell you, right? So detachment from all types of pleasures of the world, which are karma phalam only. So this is in short called viragaha or vairagyam, right? And then of course is Shamadhi Shatka Sampattihi, the third qualification. And here it is the internal wealth, right? And we have seen this in great detail. We'll anyway go through this, Shamaha, Damaha, etc. Sixfold disciplines, right? So it is the internal wealth, and basically the internal wealth of a person. No external wealth can give us moksha, right? So it is the internal wealth or the virtues which is grouped by Shankaracharya calls this the Shatka Sampattihi, and they are mental faculties, right? It's a group of six, the sixfold internal disciplines beginning with Shama, Shamadhi, that's why. And it is going to be explained later. Basically, Shama is mind management or thought discipline. That's the third qualification. The other five are going to be enumerated. We are going to see it in detail. And then the fourth one is Mumukshutvam, the most important one, right? Even though it is enumerated as fourth, the desire for moksha is very important because only one who desires liberation is called mumukshuhu, and only for him this is relevant. All other qualifications are relevant only if one wants liberation. Otherwise, they are not relevant, the first three, right? So if a person says, I'm happy being a materialistic person, then we don't even have to introduce Vedanta to him, right? And we are not interested in marketing Vedanta also. The person has to seek Vedanta voluntarily without being forced or coaxed, right? So once a person becomes mildly curious, then he is a Manda Mumukshu. Slowly it will improve and it will become Tivra Mumukshuhu. Then Guru, Shastra, everything will become important, right? So iti sfutam means clearly as pointed out in the scriptures, right? So these four, Viveka, Vairagyam, Shamadhi Shatka Sampatti, and Mumukshutvam are the internal wealth required for Vedanta to work. And suppose we find Vedanta is not working for us, that is because there is deficiency in one of the four or many of the four, right? So Shankaracharya is going to define the relevance of each one, the 4 Ds, discrimination, dispassion, discipline, and desire. Adau nitya nitya vastu vivekah pariganyate इहामुत्रफलभोगविरागस्तदनन्तरं शमादिषट्कसम्पत्तिः मुमुक्षुत्वमिति स्फुटम्. So we will stop here. पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते. ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः.